With God of War Ragnarok coming out later this year, I'm about to start playing the original 2018 God of War, but before that, I'm gonna first make a video on God of War 3 from the original trilogy. Now, the game originally released in 2010, the remaster came out in 2015, and I finished the remaster in 2020, 2 years after it came out on PlayStation Plus. So 10 years after its original release, a lot of things just didn't age well. Like when I was at my friend's house in 2012, I saw him play it and I thought it looked pretty cool, but that was before the PlayStation 4 was even announced, and I was still in elementary school. But after playing thousands of hours of other games, and after 8 years, the game was alright. Now when it comes to the story, there's the Witcher issue to me, where I never played the original games. But I did watch a recap of everything I needed to know. Now recaps are nowhere near as good as playing them, but for God of War 3, it was a pretty simple story, where it's still enjoyable without having played the original. Now it's not anywhere near as good as playing the original games, but it's still fine. Kratos wants to kill Zeus after all the shit he's done to him in the previous games, and throughout the game, he kills a shit ton of people and uses their belongings as weapons. I'm not gonna go into specifics cause then it'll just spoil the game, but getting these new weapons after defeating these enemies was pretty cool. Overall, I enjoyed the story, but I just didn't love it. If you played the original games, you'd get to understand Kratos more, so in that scenario, the story would be a lot better. But other than that, I don't really have any issues with the story. Now when it comes to the gameplay, this is again something that I thought was pretty enjoyable. There's a good amount of weapons to fight with, and as you progress through the story, you'd get more of them. But the coolest part about the gameplay was the boss fights. There were a good number of them, and they all fought differently with cool unique settings and atmospheres. Like for one of the bosses you gotta chase the man, for another one you fight him on the back of a titan, for Aphrodite you get to fight her blind, and for Hades you get to fight him in the underworld. And they all have unique attacks and everything. All the bosses were fun to fight, aside from like 2 of them, with the best boss being Zeus. This boss gave me a tough time, and it brought in a nice challenge. I platinumed the game, so I played it on the hardest difficulty, and it took me a minute to beat him. He has 2 fights, so like he has the human form fight, and then like a giant spirit form fight later on. But the entire Zeus fight was cool from start to finish. There's not much I disliked about the game, and if there was anything I didn't like, it's just extremely minor. Like with the camera and the voice acting. I remember the camera being poo sometimes, and for the voice acting, I don't really like how he's always mad, cause it's almost cartoonish. But then at the same time, it does kinda make sense for the character, with how violent he is and the entire story. I do like the voice acting in the reboot a lot more though, cause he doesn't seem like he's screaming all the time. And lastly, when it comes to the visuals, I played the remastered PS4 version, and as a remaster, it was alright. The game looked really good at its time, so I don't have any issues with the visuals. I know in my Bloodborne video, people were shocked at me calling the graphics to be outdated, and I still stand by that. I don't think the game looks like poo, but as a PS4 game, I think it could have looked a lot better. But when I comment on graphics in my videos, it barely affects how I view the game, cause it doesn't matter that much to me. The only time it becomes an issue is when it looks like shit for its time, or if a newer entry looks worse than the original. Like a good example is Black Ops 4. Black Ops 3 looked so sick, but moving on to Black Ops 4 2 years later, it seemed like a downgrade. So in that case, it affected the game more. But for Bloodborne, it didn't look like shit. I just thought it could have looked better for PS4, and for God of War 3, the game looks sick on PS3, so I don't have an issue with it right now. I also platinumed the game, and it was actually pretty tough, especially when I had to complete the final mission without failing. I tried to get the trophy where you finish the entire game on hard at the same time, so it took me a while. But that's pretty much it. I'ma give God of War 3 a decent. The thing holding this game back is its age, and I know if I played it back in the day, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. And I also didn't play the first 2 games. But today, and without having played any of the older games, I thought it was just decent. Now, this is a very short review cause it's an old game, and I want to spend more time talking about God of War 2018 once I finish that game. I'll start streaming it eventually, so make sure to check out my Twitch in the link in the description, and subscribe as well with notifications so you can see when that video comes out. Now this is a very rare game where I have high expectations, cause I haven't heard anyone say they disliked it, and everything that I've heard from it just makes me intrigued. Like apparently there's no cuts at all. Like, the entire game is a long take, which immediately impressed me. It's one of the best looking games on PS4, and on PS5 with the 4K 60 update, it'll probably look like one of the best looking games I've played. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I only got 2 spoilers. The first spoiler is that his mom, or like Kratos' baby mama dies. That might not actually be a spoiler, that might just be a thing from the trailer. I'm not entirely sure, but the second spoiler is a bigger spoiler, and it's that the stranger boss fight is actually so sick apparently. So when I start the game, I'm gonna see that going in, and I won't be blown away when I see it for the first time. I think I've only seen parts of the trailer when I got some footage for one of my videos, but apart from those spoilers, I'm gonna go in completely blind. But that's about it for this video. Later.